What up, everyone? It's your boy Soju from the Straight Chillin' Podcast, back with another video game review, this time for BioShock 2, originally from 2010. And to start things off, I would recommend that you play through this game if you played through and enjoyed the original BioShock. If you haven't played through BioShock 1, there's really no reason to play through BioShock 2, but before I get too far into it, let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
So starting off with the positives, I love that this game places you in the shoes of a Big Daddy. These iconic characters from the first game make a great protagonist in the second game, especially because it allows the sequel to carry on without any major characters from the first game, while also expanding the overall world and lore of Rapture. I like how they dive deeper into the link between Big Daddies and Little Sisters, and even at one point you get to play the game from the perspective of a little sister and see the world through their eyes, which I thought was handled beautifully because they actually see the world as this romanticized place where everyone is healthy and dressed up nice and the corpses actually look like angels, and I just enjoyed playing that segment so much. There are also small tweaks that they made in the gameplay coming from the first BioShock that I think were improvements. One was the fact that your character has both hands out at the same time, which means you can use a plasmid or a weapon without having to switch between the two. They also changed the way machines are hacked, and while I didn't mind the hacking from the first one, I do think the change they made was a good alternative. It doesn't take you out of the game, so it doesn't disrupt the game flow and generally moves quicker than the previous hacking system. They also eliminated the item building aspect in this game, which I thought was a plus, and changed the research tool into a video camera as opposed to taking pictures, which also made for smoother gameplay. The new characters that they introduced in this game were impressive, especially following the iconic characters from the first game. I like how Lamb was kind of on the opposite end of Andrew Ryan from a philosophical standpoint, but still ended up just as twisted and manipulative as he was. The character of Sinclair was a fun guide, especially as they didn't really try to hide the fact that he wasn't that great of a person, but it still felt pretty tragic when he ultimately gets turned into a Big Daddy. Now, the weapons are mostly carryovers from the first game, even though they do come with different skins and some different ammo choices as well. However, they're pretty similar in the way that they function, but I really did like having the Big Daddy drill as the melee weapon, and the drill charge just made it feel even more powerful and added a fun playstyle to the game. This was also the first time I played through the DLC Minerva's Den, and I loved how they explored the computer aspects of Rapture, and I found the standalone story to be really strong and impactful for such a short DLC. Now, before we get into the negatives, I wanted to mention this because it's going to play as both a positive and a negative, but this game is very similar to the first BioShock. So I liked revisiting Rapture as a new protagonist, and I liked seeing new areas of the city such as Popper's Drop, which served as the poor side of town, as well as Siren's Alley where all the seedy things like prostitution went down. But after a while, the city of Rapture starts to lose some of that initial mystery and intrigue. This can be especially true if you play these games very close together or back to back, because then it feels like you get too much of Rapture and the gameplay starts to get stale. Now, I do think this is a great sequel. However, I do think it would be difficult for a newcomer to pick up this game and appreciate it without having played the first BioShock. This game is very much a fan service to the original fans, especially when including new tape recordings of Andrew Ryan and Fontaine, but if you hadn't played the original game, it would be easy to get lost in the lore, and in that way BioShock 2 has a hard time standing on its own. I also thought the plasmids were kind of lacking in this game, in the sense that you start off with the same 3 plasmids in this game as you did in the first BioShock, and while there were some new options later down the line, they never really felt quite as useful as the original standard plasmids. This game is also a lot more linear, and so they ultimately removed the more open world feel that the original BioShock had. Also, after going through a few levels, I found some of the fetch quests to be pretty tedious, especially in Dionysus Park, where they make you get 3 little sisters after you've been doing this same thing to get Adam for several levels at this point. Also, because the method of gathering atoms shifts so much in this game, the overall battle with Big Daddies and Little Sisters feels less challenging since you have to do it more often in this game, and that felt like it cheapened the experience a little bit. Overall though, I don't have a whole lot of negatives for this game, so let's go ahead and hop into the final score.
Overall, I'm going to give BioShock 2 a 4.5 out of 5. While it's not quite as good as the original game, it is a fantastic follow-up. If you've played through BioShock 2, let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to get some weekly horror content from the Straight Chillin' podcast. And until next time, everyone, please don't forget to keep chillin'.